hear an awesome person speak. So she is a longtime nutritionist, and she's here to tell all of you about the health benefits of a plant-based diet. So here is Sid Nodder.
Hello, testing. Good. Thank you, everyone. I'm curious to know how many here are currently following some type of plant-based diet. Awesome. How many are just thinking about it? All right, well, I hope some of the information I present today will help you get off the fence and make that firm decision. My name is Sid Nodder. I'm a longtime nutrition educator, and I've been helping people for nearly 25 years to switch to a whole food plant-based diet. And I'm the founder and author of the Plan-A Diet, which is a book that just released about 3 months ago. So today, first let's talk about what a whole food plant-based diet actually means. That means eating plant foods in their whole natural state, as close to nature as possible, with minimal or little processing. Now, blending, cooking, and freezing, all of that is fine, but we do want to avoid any heavily processed items. For example, a potato is a whole food. A potato which has been converted into French fries or potato chips is not a whole food. An apple is a whole food, but an apple that is now into a Pop-Tart is not a whole food. The first benefit associated with whole food plant-based diet is that this is the only diet capable of unblocking arteries and reversing our #1 killer. We just saw this information in the Game Changer movie, and I was glad to see that there. We also saw Caldwell Esselstyn, who's the doctor from the Cleveland Clinic, talking about heart disease, and I like what he says. He says heart disease is a toothless paper tiger that does not need to exist, and if it does exist, it need never progress. So not only can this way of eating prevent our #1 killer, it can prevent our top 15 leading killers, and here they are in order. Heart disease, of course, #1, followed by lung disease, medical mishaps, yes, #3 cause of death there, brain diseases, digestive cancers, infections, diabetes, high blood pressure, liver disease, blood cancers, kidney disease, breast cancer, suicide, prostate cancer, heart disease. That is a mouthful. Those are our top 15 leading causes of death. But not only can this way of eating help prevent all of those, our everyday chronic conditions such as constipation, high cholesterol, acid reflux, gout, arthritis, all of those things are also easily relieved. And that's because the body is always striving to heal itself. The body is so amazing, and it can do that when we give it the right dietary environment. Benefit #2 is natural, healthy weight loss, because when we're eating for health, typical weight loss of about 1 to 3 pounds a week usually occurs. That's because we're eating calorie-dilute, high-fiber foods that fill us up for a lot less calories and a lot less food. That's because the foods are filled with fiber. For example, you would not try to eat 2 big bowls of black bean chili. You'd feel like you're going to explode, right? That's all that fiber. So it allows us to fill up on a lot smaller portions and feel full, and to achieve weight loss without calorie counting or any of that point counting or measuring and weighing food. Now, we do pay attention to the calorie density in food, and that is all explained in my book. But that allows us to eat whenever we're hungry and stop when we're full. And just keep in mind that your stomach is about the size of your fist, so it doesn't take much to fill that up. The third benefit of this way of eating is no cholesterol. There is no cholesterol in plant foods. Cholesterol is only found in animal foods, such as meat, dairy, fish, and eggs. And a lot of people are surprised to learn that chicken and fish have as much cholesterol as beef. Those foods are not lower in cholesterol than red meat. So why should we care about that? Because cholesterol leads to plaque formation and increases our risk of cardiovascular disease and stroke. Plus, having high cholesterol in midlife predicts an increased risk of Alzheimer's down the road. We're now knowing that Alzheimer's has risen 87% over the last decade, which is one of our fastest growing epidemics. And up to 90% of those cases are preventable. That's the good news, that we have a lot more control over that. So according to Dr. Esselstyn, he says that our total cholesterol should be 150 or less with an LDL, that's the bad cholesterol, of 80 milligrams or less, and that's without medication. The next benefit is that whole food plant-based eating is quite low in saturated fat. Saturated fat are fat molecules which are saturated with hydrogen. That's why they're called saturated fat. It stays solid at room temperature, and you've seen it in the white marbling of steaks or bacon. So here in this picture of foods that are high in saturated fat, you see the white marbling there in the steak, the bacon, the processed meats. That's the saturated fat in there. Why should we care about that? Because saturated fat stiffens the artery walls, it makes our blood viscous or thick, it makes our blood pressure go up, and it contributes to impaired brain function, type 2 diabetes, and so much more. So plant foods are low in saturated fat, with the exception of certain foods like coconut products, cocoa butter. Those things do have more saturated fat than I like to, I advise my clients to steer clear of those. Just as an example, a tablespoon of lard has 5 grams of saturated fat. A tablespoon of coconut oil has 12 grams. So there's over twice the saturated fat in coconut oil as there is in lard, just to put that in perspective. The fifth benefit of eating this way is it's very anti-inflammatory, and they talked about this in the Game Changer movie too. I was so glad they covered this. Inflammation is the body's response to a threat or harm. So you know how when you get a cut or a splinter or you stub your toe, it gets swollen and painful or red? That's because the body is rushing immune cells to that area to start the healing process, and that's a good thing. But when immune cells overstay their welcome or they're not needed, that leads to chronic inflammation. And the most likely site that happens is the artery of our linings. Because when we eat a lot of fats and cholesterol, our bodies develop plaques, which the body sees as a threat or harm. Those plaques resemble small sores. So that's when we get that chronic state of inflammation going. Oh, I forgot to tell you something there about which foods are the most inflammatory. Foods are refined sugars, meats, processed meats. Common oils are very inflammatory. Refined grains, alcohol, and food dyes and additives. Anti-inflammatory foods, of course, are fruits, especially berries and oranges. Beans, legumes, whole grains, whole soy foods, and even greens such as kale and spinach. All of those are very anti-inflammatory, which is one reason why people with chronic pain or high blood pressure or arthritis, basically anything ending in itis is related to inflammation. All of those things can be easily reversed. Benefit number 6, and the experts agree that the best way to get our nutrients that we need is through food. So a well-structured plant-based diet offers the ideal mix of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and phytonutrients. It's the synergistic interaction of all those things which really explains why it's so good for our bodies and why taking isolated nutrients sometimes doesn't work real well and can actually cause harm. When we're eating food though and getting all of our vitamins and minerals through food, the body can select exactly what it needs and gives us the best chance for optimal function. Benefit number 7 is this is protein in the right amount, and that movie just covered the topic of protein in depth. They talked about protein being 20 amino acids that form into chains, and all of those amino acids are synthesized by plants. Well, how much protein do we really need? The World Health Organization says that 5% of our calories should come from protein, 6% for pregnant women, and those numbers include a built-in buffer. Compare that to the protein in plants. Potatoes are 10% protein, beans 25%, lentils 31%, and look down here on the right, spinach is 51% protein. I listed breast milk there, 5% protein. Why did I do that? Because babies are at the most rapidly growing stage of life, often doubling their weight in a short amount of time, and they have high protein needs, which breast milk at 5% protein, oops, fills that need amply. So it's funny, when I ask people how much protein they need or how much they're consuming, most people can't answer that. They've just been convinced by society and savvy marketers that we need a lot of protein to be healthy. But actually the opposite is true. And a whole food plant-based diet provides all the protein we need. So there is not anything to worry about when you're eating this way. And it'll be the first question you're asked when you tell people that you're eating plant-based. They're going to say, where are you getting your protein? Well, you're getting it from all those plants in an ample amount. In fact, it would be virtually impossible to become protein deficient if you're eating enough food. That statement has, people have tried to disprove that, and it just cannot be done because there's plenty of protein in plants. And as they mentioned in the Game Changer movie, that's where the animals are getting it. Oops, the 8th benefit is calcium. And as someone who was diagnosed with osteopenia many years ago, and then when I finally gave up the dairy, my bone health went back to normal. I can tell you that calcium is ample in plant foods. Calcium mineral in the earth, which is absorbed by plants and eaten by these large animals, and that's where cows get calcium. So cows don't produce calcium or inherently have calcium in their milk. They get it because they're eating calcium-rich plants. So we want to just eliminate the middleman there and get our calcium from plants too. So the current RDA for calcium is between 1,000 and 1,200 milligrams a day for both men and women, depending on your age. But the World Health Organization, again, says that we only need 400 to 500 milligrams a day to prevent osteoporosis. So one bowl of bean kale soup has about 400 milligrams of calcium, and an orange has 111. So just with one lunch there, you've already met your daily requirement. A whole food plant-based diet benefits every system and organ in the body. So far we've talked about the benefits of disease prevention, which is my biggest motivator, weight loss, no cholesterol, low saturated fat, anti-inflammatory, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, protein and calcium in the right amount. And not only that, so our brain health, our gut health, your gut bacteria thrives on carbohydrates, but the bad gut bacteria thrives on the meats and the dairy products. It benefits the liver, the kidneys, and plus this way of eating reverses type 2 diabetes, 3 times greater than the diet that's prescribed by the American Diabetes Association, which I find remarkable. And when it comes to protein, by the way, something I forgot to mention is that the body cannot store excess protein. So when people are eating a high protein diet, the body has to excrete that, and it's very hard on the liver and kidneys. So a whole food plant-based diet is very good for those organs as well. So these are my personal motivators. I have a dire family history of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, stroke. Both my siblings have heart attacks. This is why I eat this way, to stay as much out of the medical system as possible. So in my book, which just came out called The Plan A Diet, released about 3 months ago, I talk about all of these things in greater depth. Plus, I address useful insights for dealing with resistance to change. I've noticed 12 reasons why people find it really hard to change their diet, and I talk about those in the book. Plus, I give 7 tips on how to evaluate what you hear and read, because aren't we nutritionally confused? We're so bombarded with conflicting information. One day coffee is bad, one day coffee is good. One day whole grains are the worst thing, you know, the evil, and then other times whole grains are really good. So how do you sort all that out? How do you figure out what's really true? So the book does give tips to address that. Plus, the book includes personal questions for personal reflection and also for use in group discussion. Plus, it has a 7-day meal plan. But I will give you a free 21-day meal plan if you're interested. Just come see me after the talk and I'll send that to you. Plus, the book also contains scriptural support. If you happen to be a person of the Christian faith, there is scriptural support included for that. So let me share a few testimonials with you from some of my clients. This is Tim. He's a painter for the Chicago Transit Authority in Chicago. He was a self-described dyed-in-the-wool meat eater who was following Atkins. He was on 8 medications. You see them listed there. And one day he noticed his skin turning yellow. Remember, we talked about excess protein being hard on the liver and kidneys. All of those unused proteins in his body were making his liver stressed out and his skin was turning yellow. So that's when he and his wife Terry came to meet with me. And he switched his diet. Now he's off all 8 meds. Can you believe it? All 8 meds. Same height and weight as high school. Arthritis is gone. Sense of well-being off the chart. This is Amanda. She put on 50 pounds in college. She's a teacher, by the way, and she developed irritable bowel syndrome and some other digestive issues. But after she switched her diet, she lost 115 pounds in 1 year, cleared up her digestion, and she now loves to cook. And you can see that her husband benefited as well there too. This is Doug. He was overweight, again, always gaining weight since childhood. He developed high pressure, blood pressure, he had sleep apnea, severe plantar fasciitis. Remember, anything ending in itis is inflammatory. He was almost going to be put on disability because of it. Then at age 46, he developed type 2 diabetes, and the doctor said that changing his diet and exercising would not matter, just take your meds and accept it. He was really willing and looking for answers, but he didn't accept it. He changed his diet. In just 2 weeks, that plantar fasciitis relieved to the point where his foot pain was gone. And that's because that inflammation, he was no longer eating those inflammatory foods. His blood pressure normalized in 4 weeks, totally reversed his diabetes, and lost 115 pounds. So at the 18-week point into his plant-based journey, he went back to his doctor for a checkup, and he had not told his doctor that he changed his diet. And he went off his meds, but in my book he explains he was monitoring himself very closely. You shouldn't just, arbitrarily go off your meds without monitoring yourself closely. But anyway, at the 18-week point, he went to see his doctor, and the doctor came in the room with a chart and said, "What are you doing?" And Doug told him, "I've changed to a plant-based diet." The doctor said, "Well, you've cured yourself. I'm so happy for you, but you are only less than 1% of the people that will actually do that." But I disagree with that. This is the same doctor that told him that his diet wouldn't matter. So I think if more people were given the option of a whole food plant-based diet and the effect that it can have, I think that more people would opt to do that. This is Linda. She has a genetic skin disorder called Haley disease, which caused her skin to blister and become infected, and she went through years of pain and topical treatments. And then in her 50s, she's actually my sister-in-law, I convinced her to change her diet, and she's had no more flare-ups of this Haley disease, and her dermatologists are amazed. Plus, she's lost weight and sleeps better. So my book is available on Amazon. I have copies here today if you're interested for $10, or if you just would like a flyer with more information about it. Plus, I have that free 21-day plan I'm happy to share with you. But I also just want to say one thing. I'm really excited about this. I'm currently working on an online course to help people. I can only fit so many people in my little basement trying to teach this. So I'm finally getting into the 21st century and offering something online. And I'm working on a course that to address the things that I see most. People feel defeated and hopeless, and many times they're not failing the diet plans. The diet plans are failing them. So people are worried, they're stressed out about their health, they're looking for answers. So this 6-week course will help people transition to a whole food plant-based diet and be freed from the quick fixes that are out there that do help people lose weight, but they're temporary and they're often quite harmful. So if you have any questions about that, I have a flyer in the back as well. And are there any questions for me today at all? Yes.
And what would you recommend instead of coconut oil?
I'm sorry.
I use coconut oil a lot.
Oh, do you? Mm-hmm.
But what would you recommend instead?
Well, we recommend no oils for a couple reasons. That Dr. Esselstyn of the Cleveland Clinic, he has shown that oils actually damage the endothelial lining of the arteries and pave the way for plaque formation. And plus, they're 100% fat, so from a weight standpoint, just 3 tablespoons a day adds 3 pounds a month to someone. And they're really inflammatory. Remember how we talked about common oils to remove highly inflammatory items. So I do a whole teaching thing on how to bake, cook without oil, stir fries and all of that, how to eliminate oil from the diet. Anything else at all? And about that, we get all the fats that we need from the whole food, plant-based, and that's all addressed in my book too. All right, thank you, Mike, for having me. Vegan Evan's
You're welcome,
gonna come
yeah.
back.
Vegan Evan's got a few words to say, right?
Okay.